This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Black Friday Game Day on Prime is an epic day of live sports. It all starts at 9 a.m. Eastern with the Capital One Skins game. Then, Black Friday football returns when the Bears take on the Eagles at 3 p.m. And it culminates with the final night of Emirates NBA Cup group play with Bucks Knicks at 7 p.m. and Mavs Lakers at 10 p.m. Black Friday Game Day, only on Prime.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Hey there, Blue Devil fans. Episode 772 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. In full disclosure mode, I literally was about to start this podcast, and Donald reminded me that we were not recording. There was an entire possibility that we were going to speak for an hour about the Duke Niagara game, and I was going to have none of it recorded. Oh my God. I'm Jason.
We've done this before.
We have done this before.
Go back to that Louisville game back in 2019, ladies and gentlemen. There are 2 takes, and you've only heard one. I don't think we'll ever hear the other one because we lost it.
Oh God, that is the two major times that I have done a podcast and not recorded it was one when I interviewed Bobby Hurley. Mm-hmm. I did an hour-long interview with Bobby Hurley, and I spent months talking to Arizona State about recording it, and they gave it to me, and then I didn't hit record. It was great. Bobby had some amazing reflections on 1991 and stuff like that, and 92. And then the other one, of course, is the legendary, the huge comeback, the Zion Williamson. I guess actually that's not the Zion Williamson comeback. That's the Jordan Goldwire comeback.
Yeah, well, the Louisville game, the lost tape, I call it, because I was with Sam. I think Sam was drunk at a bar on 9th Street.
Yeah.
You were somewhere. I was coming back from watching the game. That's one for if anyone ever wanted to do a documentary on us, that I know every detail of that night. That would be like its own little episode by itself. That's how fun that episode was. And then, we had to do it again, which was also fun, but it was very funny, recalling some of the things in my mind about that whole night. It was so funny.
In any event, we are now recording, and we are here to talk about Duke's game against Niagara. The Blue Devils win it 100-42. Am I allowed to say that a game you won by 58 wasn't as close as the score indicates?
Correct.
Oh, my goodness. We will start with the headlines. Donald, I know you had a disclaimer that you wanted to put in here before we do the headlines. Go for it, sir.
Yeah. So the first thing is, everyone, thank you. We got a ton of headlines, and I will start by saying that I'm just going to say the generic Niagara Falls. almost like 99.9% of the submissions we got had some sort of Niagara Falls reference in it. We can't reference them all. So I'm just going to disclaimer the whole Niagara Falls. You all were on the same wavelength. Jason, I think you and I were probably on the same wavelength. If we had to submit headlines, Niagara Falls would have been a part of it. So if we don't get to your Niagara Falls headline, that is why. There was 9 million of them to sort through. We appreciate them all. But we just can't list them all. So we're just going to do the generic. Everybody gets mentioned who submitted a headline that says Niagara Falls.
Yes, but we actually have. There was one of the Niagara Falls one that I wanted to do because I just thought it was so clever. Jim Baumgartner gave us Niagara Falls faster than Niagara Falls falls. And
yes, I saw that one. Yeah,
that's actually pretty good, man.
Yeah, that was thinking outside the falls, I guess. Is how you would put it.
Yeah.
Jason, I think another thing, and you might have another one. We had some that Niagara rhymes with a certain well-known drug. There was a few of those submissions. I thought one in particular was very funny. I'm not going to say it. Jason might say it, but I wanted to do this one, Jason. Nick King, he sent one that said, "Sound the gongba. Big game from Big Pat and big win for the Big Blue Devils." You had Big Pat. You had a nice little onomatopoeia there with his last name. You had alliteration. You made me have to think through that as I was saying it. Congratulations, Nick. That was a great one.
Yeah, Nick, I had that on my list too. Bang the gongba would have been really great. So the one that we're not going to talk about that drug that rhymes with Niagara, but Bobby Weinbarger used that and made a joke about Duke making the scoring hard on the Purple Eagles. I'll just say that. So, Bobby, I am giving you a hat tip for that.
Yeah.
But the other one that I wanted to mention, and again, we've disqualified 90% of them. John Lee, literally, Donald, minutes before we were about to record this, John Lee sent us Duke's D shuts off the water in Cameron and sends Niagara falling back to New York. I thought that was really good because the
cool
defense. Yeah, that's the story of the game.
Yeah, the last one I have is from Josh Dill, and he had Purple Eagles turn blue, drowned by Devil's depth, which again, alliteration, a water pun without using Niagara Falls. I think very well played, sir.
All right, so let's get to the good. Let's get to the things we want to talk about from this game, and I'm going to start with Duke's defense. Niagara was barely getting off shots. I mean, from almost from the start of this game, almost every possession for Niagara was like almost a shot clock violation. They were, firing up stuff as the buzzer was sounding, just praying that something would go in. Niagara in this game ends up shooting 27% from the field, 24% from three, 13 of 48 from the field, just 7 of 29 from three-point range. Duke holds them to 42 points. Niagara's a team that averages 66. Now, 66 is not a big number. Niagara's not a great offensive team, but we held them 24 points under their average. By the way, the Duke Sports Information Department informed me that Duke has held every single opponent this season to less than their season average. And I think a big part of Duke's defense in this game, Donald, we had a nice number of steals. We had a nice number of blocked shots. It was just a function of the fact that Duke was just way, way bigger. In fact, at one point, there were a couple moments in the game where John Shire rolled out a lineup that was Big Pat, Cam Boozer, Malik Brown, Dame Sarr, and then I think Caden was the point guard. I forget. I just noticed those other four guys. I mean, Dame was functionally playing the two. That is a massive, massive lineup. But the amazing thing about that lineup is that's a great defensive lineup. Usually teams, when they get big, they get a little bit slower. They aren't as good on defense. You're sacrificing something for playing four guys who are over 6'8", and Duke somehow doesn't have to do that. And it's a difference maker against everyone, especially against a smaller team like Niagara.
Well, we're not going to face another team as small as Niagara for about 30 more hours until Howard walks into the gym. But I think also, if you think about it, if you're one of the tallest teams in college basketball, which we are, we're like what, number 4 or 5 on KenPom in terms of height, we have this opportunity that we can learn how to play against teams that are really small, right? And I mentioned that you have guys, Cam Gillis is coming to town or going to play to Cameron today and tomorrow. He's 5'11". I compared him in stature and kind of fight and drive to a Marcus Burton, who we're going to see during the season. Like, those are the things that we are preparing ourselves for with regards to the ACC. Jason, when we talk about the defense, you mentioned 42 points. I want people to understand that there's only 40 minutes in a basketball game, and they hit 40 with like 2 minutes left and still went on a 2-minute drought where they only had 2 points. I found myself rooting for us to keep Niagara under 40 more than I was rooting for us to get to 100 points. The reason why is not because of anything to do with Niagara. Love Greg Paulus, love it, and respect the fact that he, was able to come in here and again get his flowers as part of this Brotherhood run. But it would have been a great achievement for the defense that we played last night to keep a team under 40 points. That is incredibly difficult to do. We held them to 19 points in the first half, and again, we started garbage time with essentially 9.5 minutes left in the game when we started subbing people out. And the fact that we were able to hold them to basically 8 points essentially the rest of the game and just barely keep them or barely have them over 40 points, that is a huge achievement for any defense against any team. Like you mentioned, the season average for them is 66. Like if we had won 100 to 66, that still would have been a good output, right? Like that still would have been a good score. But to win 100 to 42 is incredible, and it speaks to the defense that we showed. We forced 17 turnovers. Everybody it felt like was getting steals, getting deflections, making them take bad jumpers. And every single time we went on a run, it's almost like the defense wanted more. And I love that killer instinct on defense.
Yeah, and speaking of the defense, a function of all this was the pace of the game. And I want to talk about this just for a second. So Duke was, first of all, really pushing on offense. But talking about the defense, I think you saw a little more trapping, a little more pressing, a little more of trying to control things on defense from Duke than you have in previous games. Duke would put either Malik Brown or Dame Sarr at the head of the press. Man, that's one of the most terrifying. if you're an opposing point guard and they inbound the ball to you and you turn around and there's a press waiting for you with someone as long as Dame Sarr or Malik Brown, you're just like, oh shit.
Jason, there was a point that it's one of the many plays that were probably up for consideration for play of the game, but there was one where I believe it was Caden Boozer found Malik Brown underneath for a wide open dunk. In most presses, most full court presses, you see the point guard be the head of the snake, the one that comes up to the front and try to challenge the ball handler. Caden Boozer basically went back to midcourt because he was like, okay, well, that's a dunk. And the funny thing is Malik Brown just stayed there and was like, okay, I'm like, he's probably guarding the inbound man because that's his guy. Then all of a sudden, he kind of forces the ball handler to the corner where Dame Sarr was waiting for him. The ball handler dribbled the ball basically off his own leg out of bounds. And you know how when guys celebrate a full court press and they get a turnover like that, sometimes they'll point in their direction like, yep, our ball, our ball. Malik Brown just calmly stepped out of bounds and just was like, ball. Like, I'm ready to throw the ball in, ref. Like, it was so like nonchalant that they just basically set up this full court press. And in the span of like 3 seconds, he basically had the guy dribble over to Dame Sarr. Dame Sarr was able to force a turnover. And both of them were just like, okay, now we're ready for offense now. It was very clinical, very methodical. And not like they did it the whole game. They showed it at different times and in different sets. So I really liked what I saw about the full court press. It's the first time we've seen it all year.
Can you imagine being trapped by Malik Brown and Dame Sarr?
I can't. It won't end well for me. I'll dribble the ball out of bounds too.
That's not a double team. That's a quadruple team because each of their arms is like 2 arms.
Yeah. How do you see through that? Like to even get a pass, like he's probably either sailing it to the upper deck at Cameron or he's throwing it right to Malik Brown, who there's a couple of their turnovers where guys like Cam Boozer, like they threw a pass and it didn't make it past the person who was on the ball because they would just reach up and snatch it, like thank you, like and then go the other way.
As a result of the trapping and the pressing on defense and the fact I mentioned Duke pushing the pace, I want to talk very quickly about the difference in Duke on offense and defense this season in terms of pace. This is absolutely incredible. All right, so Duke is playing the 16th fastest offense in all of college basketball. Like, it doesn't matter whether you score a bucket or whether we get a turnover. We are racing the other direction, trying to get into our offense before the opposing defense is set. Duke is just playing really, really fast on offense. Duke is playing phenomenally slow. And I said the 16th fastest offense. We're like the 10th or 12th slowest defense.
It's because teams can't get a shot.
Yeah. It's this crazy dichotomy where when Duke has the ball is getting put up really fast because Duke is finding a shot and Duke has, got you in scramble mode. And on defense, you can't get off a shot against this Duke team. It is crazy. 16th fastest on offense, 354th slowest on defense. That is just you just don't see that kind of thing very often. And it's just been, really enjoyable to watch from the standpoint of a fan and enjoying the games. I want to get to something else, Donald, that has been a problem for this Duke team in the past. And Cameron Boozer in the postgame, when they were interviewing him, he came out and he said he was disgusted by how Duke played early on against Kansas. He said the Kansas game was the worst game Duke has played all year. He said the team in the locker room before this game said, we are sick of the slow starts. Donald, you and I think every single game up until now, we have talked about the fact Duke got off to a slow start. Duke got off to a slow start.
Even in the preseason, like every single game.
Yeah. Duke decided not to get off to a slow start in this game.
Yep, that was fun.
Yeah. I think Duke led for 39 minutes and like 40 seconds of this game. They scored on the opening possession on a three-pointer by Caleb. By the way, I love the fact you can tell off the opening tap, off their first possession, that Duke has a play in mind every single time. John Shire loves to let his guys freelance a little bit, but he's coming in here with some really well-designed stuff. I don't think that they got their first option off the opening tap. I was sort of watching very carefully what they were doing. They had some cutters. They had some things they were looking for. They didn't get their first option, but they ended up getting a wide open three-pointer for Caleb, and he buried it. Caleb's a very reliable three-pointer when left open. He buried it, and it was off to the races from there. This was the opposite of a slow start. Duke was basically like after 2 or 3 minutes, you were like, okay, well, they're going to win this game by 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 points. It was abundantly clear.
I loved the fact that when you're watching this game, and again, it's the fun factor. You mentioned you've seen some of these Duke men's basketball Planet videos where they've made a point in the first few games to show right before the game, right before they come out of the tunnel the last time to start the game, John Shire is drawing up a play like, hey, here's what we're going to do with this play. And then you see them execute it in the first couple minutes of the ball game. I like this because I think that's going to really prove useful in those bigger games where there might be a little bit more of the nerves that kind of creep in, the atmosphere, the energy, the intensity, and to have a calming presence of already know what we're going to do once we get this ball the first time, right? That calming presence will allow you to then ease into the game, settle in. Hey, we executed that play. We know we can do this play. File that away for later. All right, now let's play some basketball. Let's get hunkered down on defense. I think it was cool that they were able to do it, and it's cool that Duke is showing us what they're trying to do. Sometimes this play is not the same play either, right? Like they're obviously scouting. Oh, yeah. Hey, here's our biggest way to be successful here. Let's start with this play. Let's start with a success right off the opening tip. Pat gets the ball, tip it back to Caleb. Let's run this play. Let's be successful. And then from there, we can do the ebb and flow of the play. So I really like that.
All right, so let's get to another thing in the good, which is definitely the Duke's shooting. Duke made 17 of 33 three-pointers. That's 51.5%. 51.5%, Donald. I mean, I can live with that.
That's fine. That's cool.
Pretty decent number there. We had eight of our 9 guys hit three-pointers. And 4 Blue Devils. This is a great stat. The Duke Sports Information Department sent this to us. I love this. You're going to really enjoy this one. So 4 different Blue Devils connected on at least 3 three-pointers in this game. It's just the 5th time in Duke history that we've had 4 guys hit at least 3 three-pointers. The last time it happened was in 2014. Andre Dawkins, Rashid Suleiman, Rodney Hood, and Tyler Thornton all hit three-pointers against Syracuse in February of 2014. Take that, Jim Boeheim. But one of the other times that this has happened.
You remember that game, by the way?
I do. I do remember
that. That was the last game that Rashid Suleiman played. which is very ironic in that regard. But that game was wild. Let's say that.
Everyone hit 3-pointers in that game, as I recall. But one of the other times this happened, again, I said there have been 5 times in history that at least 4 guys hit 3-pointers. One of the other times was December 17th of 2007. The 4 guys who hit 3-pointers in that game were Taylor King, DeMarcus Nelson, and then John Shire and Greg Paulus. Duke was playing Albany in the game, and John Shire and Greg Paulus, the 2 coaches on the opposite sidelines, both hit 3-pointers in the game. I just thought that was a wonderful little note on all the threes that Duke hit in this game. Last thing I wanted to mention about all the 3-pointers was this. Donald, Darren Harris's first 3-pointer, which he hit, he got knocked down. It should have been a 4-point play. He then got knocked down and hit the free throws on another one, but that first one should have been a 4-point play. He was closely guarded. Like, the dude that was on him was in his face, and Darren caught it and put it up. I don't think I've ever seen a guy take a 3-pointer that quickly and like that. It was, I mean, we talk about the no dip 3 that Darren has, that he catches it, he doesn't come down, he just catches it and immediately goes up. Please go back and rewatch that. That was incredible how fast he got that shot off.
That was definitely in the scouting report for Niagara. Like, Greg Paulus is like, yo, you need to be right on him because as soon as he catches it, he's going up. And again, Niagara defender did everything right, and Darren Harris was still able to get the shot off. Let me self-correct myself. I think you mentioned the Syracuse game was 2014. That was not Sheed's last game. That was 2015. That Syracuse game that went to overtime, and then he, got bounced for the team right before we played Virginia. That was the game I was referring to. But this game that you're talking about was also wild because we always play. It feels like we always play wild Syracuse games. That one, was that the one with the jacket?
No.
This was at Syracuse then.
Right.
So yeah, that a lot of wild Syracuse games randomly. Jason, if we're talking about players, I think we need to talk about the best player of the night. That's Big Pat. Big Pat with a career high 17 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. And it felt like he was everywhere on both offense and defense. I don't know. Even though it was a career high in points, I don't know if it was his best game still because, it's hard to use that sample size. But his ability to dominate is starting to show itself. The confidence level is there. This was clearly a night where he said, I am the biggest and tallest dude on the floor. So give me the ball and get out of the way and let me finish. The idea that he was able to catch in traffic, he was able to pass, he was able to rebound. He was able to play great defense. I thought was terrific. And he showed, hey, when you know that you're the best player on the court or you know that you're the biggest player on the court and you can use that to your advantage and you actually do it, that success is palpable. And that trickulated down to the rest of the team. I will say also, and related to that, is a lot of times he was great at catching passes. There were some passes that weren't, right on his hands, right? He had to go get them. But for the fact that we were able to do 24 assists on 32 made baskets, that's 75%. Happy camper over here because it felt like we were moving the ball well, and Big Pat was the recipient of a lot of those passes in great positions to turn around and do something with it and make a basket.
Yeah, dude, you're stealing all my stuff here. I was going to get to the passing, but but let's do Big Pat for a moment. I love the fact. Well, first of all, I have to mention he hit a 3-pointer. This is super important to me. I have a bet. I have a wager with someone about Big Pat averaging half a 3-pointer per game, and this is the first one he's hit. So 6 games, 1 3-pointer. He's a little under. I need Pat to give me a 2 3-pointer game at some point, or I need him to go on a streak of maybe hitting 3-pointers in 3 or 4 games in a row. Pat, can you do this for me, please? The fact that he hit one, I hope that means Shire's going to continue to allow him to take them. So otherwise,
it feels like he will. It feels like he is. They're not outside of the flow of the offense.
No.
If they were, I'm pretty sure we would learn about it immediately. But it feels like the team is comfortable with him taking those shots. And honestly, Jason, in the flow of the offense, to have a Malik Brown, to have a Cam Boozer, to have a Big Pat out on the wing shooting the occasional 3, and Cam obviously a lot more than those two. But for Malik and Pat to shoot the occasional 3 only draws their defender out more. And when he makes one, that makes it where they have to get in their face. Do you know how much lane that opens up for all these other guys to slash and do backdoor cuts? And with those guys being elite passers, that again, a lot more options open up when they do take those shots.
All right. So the thing I wanted to add about Big Pat was 17 points on only 3 field goal attempts. That's kind of a crazy line. Because he got to the free throw line so much. He hits 10 out of 11 free throws. Duke hit 79% from the free throw line, which is a good number. And by the way, John Shire talked about the importance of a big man who can hit his free throws. And he talked about the fact that Duke needs to find Pat even more on offense. He said, this guy's super efficient. I mean, he was 3 of 3. That's super efficient. 17 points on three field goals. Super efficient. So John Shire talked about the fact that we need to find Pat more and more on offense because he is so efficient for us. I want to transition back. You mentioned the passing and the 75% assist rate. Duke had 8 guys in this game who had multiple assists. Duke just kept on making the extra pass, really unselfish. I wanted to mention Nick Hemenia because
I wanted to as well. I was hoping you got to him.
Yeah. First of all, really interesting. The final few minutes of the game, final like 5 minutes or so, Nick was playing point guard. There was no Caden in the game. There was no Caleb in the game. And Nick, John Shire mentioned this, Nick played a lot of point guard in high school and AAU ball. Like, this is not something that Nick Hemenia is unfamiliar with. It really gave him a chance to show off some of those elite passing skills. Nick had a pass to Iffy for a dunk that was just like I was like, that was a sick pass.
Mm-hmm.
I talked in the preseason. One of the things I wanted to see from this team, all throughout the summer and then into the preseason was I was like, is Nick Hemenia's passing like a secret weapon for this club? And we hadn't seen a lot of it yet. And I think we've got some real interesting glimpses of it in this game. I thought Nick had a really, look, obviously he hit the 3-pointers and everyone's going to talk about the 3-pointers. And at the end of the game, it wasn't Darren getting us to 100 by hitting a 3. It was Nick getting us there by hitting 3s. I'm all in favor of this. But I think to me, the more significant development, not just Nick's confidence he's going to get from those 3-pointers, but the confidence he's going to get from running the point, running it well, and from that passing, because I really think he had a very, very nice game with the ball in his hands.
I do too. And as I mentioned in the preview, this is why you want to take these type of teams out super early. So you can have this opportunity, 8 minutes of the game, 6 minutes left of the game, to bring in Efi and Sheffield and Jack and leave Nick in to be, hey, play the point for a few minutes. Let's see how you work in this, operate in this. Darren, get out there and get some shots in. Let's see how you operate in this. Like, it's not just about resting the starters for a game that's happening, for less than 48 hours after that. It's about getting the confidence and rewarding the guys who are further down the bench, who are getting some significant playing time. I mean, I don't think anybody expected Efi, Jack, and Cam Sheffield to have as much playing time in the first 6 games of the season as they have, right? Because we've been able to take teams out and make it early so that they're able to come in and work. And I think that part is great. And with Nick operating with that, he had a lot more, freedom to kind of take a jumper, make that swift pass, because we're going to need that confidence later on. It may be in the flow of the rotation instead of at the end of the game.
All right. So I don't know how much more we need to do on the rest of the starters, the rest of the regulars. If you've got stuff you want, it's great. I'm just going to really quickly, I just wanted to note, I thought Isaiah Evans really took the ball to the basket. We've been talking about this again and again, and it's just becoming more and more part of his game. But what I loved this game was he was taking it to the basket and looking to pass, not necessarily looking to pass, but they were collapsing on him, and he was getting, he did a really nice job, I thought, distributing the ball. Isaiah ends up with 3 assists in this contest. And then I also wanted to mention Malik Brown. I mean, like, so in the press release from the Duke Sports Information Department, they said that Malik Brown had 12 deflections in this game, that was a season high for him. I don't know if anyone from Duke Sports Information listens to this podcast, but if you do, can we start reporting on on Malik's deflections every single press release? I didn't know that you guys were tracking that stat. I need to get this stat. I need to have this all the time. And if you want to make a campaign, if you want to make a case for Malik Brown to be, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, in the running for National Defensive Player of the Year, one of the great ways you can make that case is continue to report the deflections, 12 deflections in one game. That is outrageous. It's ridiculous. He's just nothing but a nonstop disruptor. Duke has the number. Release the deflections number. I need it. I need it. I need it.
I also think they're lying. I don't think that was his season high. I think he's averaged like 15 a game, it feels like, because that's how active he is when he's in the game. Jason, I also, really quick, you mentioned stats. There's one particular stat I wanted to mention that I thought was great. Dame Sarr, 4 steals. I like that. And again, it's testament to the pressure that he and Malik were showing, but I like the fact that he was able to see that defensive pressure become statable in the form of steals, because he was, again, getting his hand in the pass lane a lot. And, unless you track deflections like Duke apparently is doing, a lot of times that's not reflected in how this defense operates. The fact that he was able to close out and get the steal so that they had to put it down on the piece of paper that, yes, Dame Sarr did something good on this defensive possession, I think is great. 4 steals is terrific. 5 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, and a block. Like, we would love to have him up closer to 10 points, but a hell of a defensive effort. And the fact that he did some stuff that was statable, again, really love to see that from him. Hopefully he's continuing to do that.
Yeah, the reason that we don't have a lot of stat stuff to talk about is because Duke spread the minutes around so much.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick Hemenia played almost 24 minutes, but that's because the final 5-6 minutes when the walk-on, functionally the walk-ons, the guys at the end, when they were in there, Nick was in there with them. But I mean, during the regular course of the game, basically every single one of Duke's 9 rotation guys were going to play between 17 and 21, 22 minutes. It was a very, very balanced attack by John Shire. And I wanted to mention, there was that great moment. They said on the broadcast that John Shire had said, I'm bringing in my 4 bench guys at the 17-minute mark, that all 4 of them came in at the same time. And immediately, so I was, when they mentioned that, I was like, oh, that's kind of, the 4 of them came in and they were playing with Cam Boozer. And I was like, oh, I want to see what these 4 guys do the moment they're in together. Donald, they had such a beautiful passing sequence where the ball was just ping-ponging around the perimeter. Darren is open for a 3. Nope. Passes it up to Nick. Open for a 3. Nope. Passes it up to Caden in the corner. They kept on looking. They had good looks, but they were like, wait, there's a better look further along. They were changing. They were trading, and Duke did this all game long. A good look for a great look. And I super enjoyed the way Duke moved the ball around, and especially those subs who really aren't, like in this game especially, everybody's playing the same number of minutes. And everybody was getting, Shire used a ton of different combinations. It wasn't like certain guys were, oh, these guys are going to play together. It was just fun to watch and an easy game to enjoy.
I think the great thing about this, and we saw this throughout the game, is Duke is big enough that even when those, 4 bench guys come in, they're still big enough and lengthy enough that they can do what is called pure basketball, where they are not dribbling, where they don't have to dribble. They can just pass the ball around, like you said, pinging the ball around, trying to find the best particular shot for that possession. And there's no dribbling to reset. When guys come off the bench, sometimes the court feels a little bit wider, a little bit deeper, because they haven't had as much time on the court. Not with these guys. These guys are getting enough minutes that they can sit there and fling a ball across court or fling the ball into the middle, back out. They know where each other is going to be on the court, and it makes for beautiful basketball, even when those guys are in the game. And for most teams in America, 99% of teams in America, your bench guys come in, you're just trying to run the clock out. Not for us. We're trying to run the score up. We're trying to get points, and these guys are capable of providing points and beautiful basketball at any moment.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, the big question from this game, the burning mystery. What do Jason and Donald possibly have to talk about in the bad? We're going to have that. We're also going to have Jason's favorite comments from Jim Boeheim. All that after the break. Stick around.
Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Disney. This Wednesday, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are back on the big screen. So grab your family and friends as Disney invites you to return to Zootopia for the phenomenal movie event of the holiday season. See all your favorite Zootopia characters, plus new favorites in the most pawsome movie of the year. Don't miss Disney Zootopia 2 when it hits theaters everywhere Wednesday. Get your tickets now.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here. Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault, a new series streaming now only on Peacock.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
All right, we are back from the break. I hope you enjoyed those brief commercial interruptions. Jason and Donald here on the DBR podcast. All right, Donald, I think the most difficult thing I had when preparing for this recap, I have this huge space on my piece of paper. It says the bad. We do the headlines, we do the good, we do the bad, we do the play of the game. There's stuff everywhere on my piece of paper except for the bad. Here is, ready for it? Here's the only thing I have in the bad from this game. We talked on the last podcast about the amazing statistic provided to us from Evan Miyakawa, about how successful Duke is when Duke commits 15 fouls or less. Duke is wins something like 97% of their games when they commit 15 fouls or less. Duke had 19 fouls in this game. That is my that is the I don't even know that that's a bad number. It seems like it's a lot, kind of. Maybe cut down on the fouls a little bit, Duke. So that is like, I have nothing else in the bad. Do you have anything?
I have two, let's call them sarcastic things. First of all, Niagara had 11 assists for an 84.6% assist rate. That's terrible. The only reason it's terrible is because they only made 11 buckets. I'm sorry, 13 buckets. Duke made 32, which is why ours is only 74 or 75%. That's my first sarcastic one. The second one is Cam Sheffield, hunt your shot. When you're in the game, hunt your shot. There was a couple times where he made the right pass and it set up an assist, and I really love him for that. But I want you to go glory hunting when you're in the game. That you have earned that. You deserve that. Jack and Efi are hunting for their shots, and you should as well. That is my two sarcastic things to improve from this game.
Wait, Cam Sheffield had 3 shots in this game. Jack Scott's the one who only took 1 shot. I thought Jack Scott was the guy who wasn't hunting his shot enough.
Cam Sheffield does not hunt his shot enough. I said it. I stand by it. I don't care what the stats say. There was definitely like 4 or 5 possessions where I'm like, oh, he's wide open. And Jason, I know he was wide open because the entire bench jumped up at those moments and said, shoot! And he passed the ball. And I was like, that's the right pass. That's not what you're here for. You're here to shoot. Like, just go ahead and shoot it. Like, we're cool with it. The bench was clearly cool with it. Even the coaches jumped up and told him to shoot. You can see. I think it was Sewell. Like after that, when they came back down, he kind of just looked at Cam Sheffield, which was like, shoot, yo, go ahead, shoot it. Like do that. And then I think that was the possession they actually did take a shot. But hunt it, baby. You're in the game.
All right, let's get to the play of the game. We had nothing in the bad.
Correct. This was very rare, ladies and gentlemen. We try to nitpick.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. There were no nits to pick in a 100-42 victory. All right, so let's get to the play of the game. First of all, before we get to the Duke play of the game, I want to congratulate Will Short of Niagara. I mentioned in the preview, Will Short is their big man. I love the fact that their big man's name is Short. He had a block of Cameron Boozer early in the game. Hell of a block by Will Short. Jim Boeheim is like, that guy's going to be telling that story for decades. But I just want to congratulate Will Short on a very, very nice block of Cameron Boozer. I'll go first on my play of the game, Donald, with 12:35 in the first half. The Croatian guy for them who airballed a three-pointer twice. He had 2 airball three-pointers in this game. Yikes. He tried to make a pass that Cam intercepted. It was one that you talked about this earlier. It was one of those passes where it only went like halfway to where it was supposed to go. And Cam intercepted it. Now, Cam did what he always does on a turnover, a block shot, any of those kind of things. Cam is immediately looking up the floor. And he, immediately was getting Duke in the fast break, and he passed it to Big Pat. I'm not sure that was the right guy to find on the fast break. Pat is very skilled for a big man. But Pat on the fast break, I don't know. And Pat did the smart thing. Pat immediately passed it back to Cam. It was like a ping pong really fast. And Cam then did the even smarter thing, and he found Isaiah Evans on the wing wide open for one of his three-pointers on the game. That Isaiah buried it, made the score 20-6 Duke. I just loved the transition from offense to defense, and I enjoyed Cam looking up and being like, there's a teammate who's racing ahead. And then it being like, oh, it's the center. But Pat did the smart thing and got it back to Cam, and we got an easy open three-pointer out of it. So that was my play of the game. What's your nominee?
That was it.
I stole it. I'm sorry.
No, it's even better because I can elaborate on the fact that I think there was only one dribble in that possession in that whole play.
Yeah.
And that was when Cam basically had to come down after snatching the ball out of midair. He had to come down and move around the defender to get open. So I think he took like a half dribble. And hey, look, if you're going to outlet and you can outlet to your 5, that's good. That's not a bad thing, Jason. That's a good thing that Pat is in a position where he can start a fast break where the ball does not touch the floor until it hits the net. That's really, really fun. And I think the fact that, again, it was very quick. He kept moving. It was almost like there was nobody else in the court with him. It was like a basket weave situation that you see every day in practice where they catch the ball, pass it to each other, and then all of a sudden they were probably thinking, oh, he's going to pass it back to Pat. They've done it twice. Slim was just, sneakily going up the left side. He finds Slim, and I don't even think Niagara tried to challenge it. They just went underneath the basket to get the ball because they knew it was going through the hoop.
All right, so I want to get to some random stuff about the announcers because I thought the announcers had a hell of a game.
So I'll preface this by saying I was covering a soccer game last night, so I couldn't. Once I saw that Jim Boeheim was on the broadcast, Jason, I think when you texted me about when we were going to record, I said, I need to rewatch this game because I could not listen to Jim Boeheim in real time. I had to listen to him this morning. Glad I did that. That's the fact that he has found this new thing that he's really good at, and that we're the beneficiary of it for several games a year, I think is awesome.
Jim Boeheim is pure comedy gold. But the first thing I wanted to mention, the play-by-play guy, I blanked on his name now. Len or Lee or I forget what his name was. Anyway, about a quarter of the way through the game, he said, hey, we're on pace for a 132 final score. Ha, ha, ha. And he laughed. He was damn close to right. I wrote that down because I was like, oh, I think he could be right about this. And for a long time, I was like, oh, 132. I think we're going to get, but then they had a little bit of a scoring run. And so it was 142. But I was like, at the 10-minute mark, the dude was like, we're a quarter of the way through the game. We're on pace for a 132 game. And I was like, that's going to be the final score, dude.
Oh yeah. That was my other sarcastic thing I had. I was mad that we let them get to 42 points. Again, for the reasons that I mentioned, not anything negative against Niagara or Greg Paulus. It was, I wanted that achievement of holding a team under 40 points. We weren't able to quite do it, so it lives for another day.
All right, so let's get to Jim Boeheim. Just tons of fun. His best comment of the game, they were talking about Cam Boozer and all the versatility and stuff like that. And Jim Boeheim noticed, Niagara has a couple guys who are really small, who are like 5'9", 5'10", maybe, in their heels. And Boeheim noticed that there had been a switch, and he goes, he's just mid-comment, he goes, he's got a midget on him now. I was just like, oh my God. Did he just say that? He's talking about Cam Boozer. He goes, he's got a midget on him now. They're going to find him. And Duke did promptly find Cam Boozer, who easily scored over the poor.
Easily scored, yeah.
I remember the poor guy who was a foot smaller than him. I also love Jim Boeheim. God love him. He can't pronounce anyone's name. He kept on calling Big Pat Bonga.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, Bonga. That needs to be his new nickname. And he also, he doesn't even know his own players' nicknames. He was talking about the story when Marek Dolezaj, who played 4 years at Syracuse, and Dolezaj was a good player. Like, he was a starter for them. He was talking about the play where Marek Dolezaj took a charge from Zion Williamson and like it knocked him into the third row. And then after the game, they were like, son, don't do that anymore. Just let him score.
Business decisions, people.
But he couldn't even come close to pronouncing Dolezaj's name. I'm like, the dude played for you. Were around him for 4 years and you can't pronounce your own player's name. Jim Boeheim is a treasure. Can we please have him on more games? I love it.
And also, aside from all the funny stuff that he does, he's actually very knowledgeable about the game. And it's difficult for coaches who have coached for a very long time to translate that knowledge into a packageable soundbite that you can hear on television. Not many guys can do it. Not many guys try to do it. And some are very bad at it, right? You see some coaches who retire and they go to, the studio and stuff like that. And you're like, I don't know what he's saying. And I don't think he does either. Jim Boeheim is very, intellectual when it comes to imparting his knowledge of the game on the game that he's watching and comparing it to what he sees as a coach. Is very rare to see that. And the fact that he's, doing pretty well at this, and he's only a few years into doing this, and seems to enjoy it. He gets to call a few games a year and doesn't get to, stray far from home. I think it's great. And so that is what coaches who are leaving the game at an earlier rate, like some of them don't take that knowledge with them in a way that's able to be imparted amongst us so that we can learn when we're watching these broadcasts.
Last thing I have in the game is I wanted to mention, we haven't spoken enough about Greg Paulus. Really great guy. He was just so excited to be back in Cameron. They showed a picture. He brought his whole family with him, including his 3 young children. Did you see when he went through the handshake line?
The handshake line, yeah. One of his kids was with him, yeah.
Yeah, and one of his kids was right behind him in the handshake line. John Shire clearly loved that. Paulus had some very, very nice comments after the game about, how meaningful Coach K has been in his life and how meaningful it is for him to get to come back to Duke, play against a former teammate. He and John Shire, of course, were teammates for 3 years. And it's just, I think this Brotherhood Run is a wonderful, wonderful idea. I mean, sure, I wish that, these were maybe a little bit more competitive games. But I just love what this whole weekend is, celebrating these guys who were a huge part of the Duke program and still are to this day. I was explaining to my wife the fact that that they were calling this the Brotherhood Run. She was like, why are they playing Niagara? What's going on? And I was like, look, the guy on the bench there. And because she's been married to me for close to 35 years. She's watched plenty of Duke games, even though she isn't necessarily a big fan, but she's like, Greg Paulus, I remember that guy, So the Brotherhood is just a real thing. It's not just a branding exercise. And it's a big deal for Niagara. It's a big deal for Howard to play these nationally televised games against a program like Duke. I mentioned that the center, Short, who blocked Cam Boozer's shot. He's gonna be able to tell his friends, his kids, everyone he knows for his whole lifetime, I blocked Cam Boozer's shot. Here's videotape of it. Because of a game like this. And it's, I don't know that I have anything magical to say about it. I just think the Brotherhood's a great thing. I love that Greg Paulus was back in Cameron last night, brought his team in there and seemed, obviously he wishes they had competed better but he was perfectly fine with the beating that was laid down upon them because he recognizes there are other things that matter and other things that his team's trying to achieve. And it's great for Niagara, great for Greg Paulus, and great for Duke.
Yeah, I love that they've set this up. This is the first year that it's official games now. Like we've had 2 years where it's occurred during the exhibition portion of the season, but now that these games count, I thought in a way it would be a little bit weirder because we are really having to cheer against a former member of the Brotherhood, but it didn't feel that way last night. It didn't feel like we were cheering against Niagara. We were cheering for Duke, and as these guys move on, and we're also recognizing players that their names aren't going to be in the rafters. Their numbers and achievements may not be in the Hall of Honor, but we remember them, right? We remember Greg Paulus and the 4 years that he gave to Duke. Jim Boeheim, ironically, like he played as coach at Syracuse. Greg Paulus played football at Syracuse, right? That sort of connection. Kenny Blakeney is a friend of the podcast, but he's not somebody that people are going to recognize on the street most days. And the fact that he's going to be able to come in today and tomorrow and receive that kind of recognition, those kind of flowers that he deserves, is great. And so for some of these coaches who are getting their start, guys that we know, we're going to figure out ways to get them in here so that they can get their flowers while they still smell them. That's the idea of this. And so we do it with all our NBA players when they come into Cameron. Every single game, they announce all those players that come back. And these coaches rarely get an opportunity to do so because they're coaching. So the fact that we've facilitated a way for them to return so that they can get that recognition for at least a day. It may be weird for them sitting on the opposing bench, but the idea that, and this isn't Greg Paulus' first time in Cameron, right? He was a video guy for Ohio State when we played during the AC Big Ten Challenge. But again, we couldn't really recognize him on the bench during the game the way we could for this. So I like that we're doing it. I like that it's set up, and hopefully it continues. And also, Jason, that would mean that we have more and more Duke Brotherhood players in the coaching ranks, which we are all a fan of.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, I want to do a really quick thing here. Last night was a pretty significant night for the ACC, for the conference in general. We've spoken a little bit, Donald, about the fact that the ACC looks like it is significantly better this year than it was a year ago. That there are more teams that appear to be, quad one quality teams. There are teams that look like they are, going to be in position to, if they have a good ACC season, make the NCAA tournament in a way that last year the ACC just didn't have many teams that looked like they were tournament quality teams. Last night, there were 4 ACC teams that played either power conference teams or teams that are, that matter, teams where a win will be noticed by the NCAA committee, and the ACC won all 4 of those games. Now, before I get to that, I do want to mention that Boston College played Davidson and lost. Can we kick BC out of the ACC? Can we? This is just that program. Look, I'm not saying Davidson isn't terrible. Davidson's a decent program. The game, I want to say the game was in Charlotte or something like that, or Charleston. It was closer to Davidson than it was to BC. It was one of the holiday tournament kind of things. But come on, BC. And it wasn't even that close. Davidson won fairly easily.
They were also alleviated, though, by the fact that I think Central Connecticut State beat another Power 4 conference team last night. I forgot who it was, but the team that beat them in Conti Fieldhouse has beaten somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So at least that's alleviated somewhat, I guess, question mark?
Yeah, not really.
No, probably not, but.
All right. Enough about BC. I want to talk about the ACC teams that had nice wins last night. Louisville played Cincinnati. This is the kind of team, Cincinnati's, top 50 kind of team, but this is the kind of game that Louisville should win if they're as good as they're supposed to be. At the halftime, Louisville was trailing. They really turned it on the second half, though. They won that game by 10 points over Cincy. That's the kind of win that Louisville should put up over a team like Cincinnati. I wanted to mention Mikael Brown Jr., the freshman, 22 points, 6 assists, shot 14 free throws in this game. Donald, his usage rate was over 40%. Louisville has put a top 10 team on the back of a freshman, and Mikael Brown Jr. is getting it done. 40% usage rate is high. He had a lot of turnovers this game as well. But Mikael Brown Jr. is doing some really special stuff for Louisville. Virginia beat Northwestern by 5, speaking of the Brotherhood.
Chris Collins at Northwestern. Northwestern was undefeated coming in that game. Now they hadn't, beaten anybody by all, that great, but that's a power conference team for Virginia to get, under their belts. Northwestern was leading that game by 7 points with about 15 minutes left, and Virginia, played well down the stretch. And stop me if you've heard this before. A freshman led the way. This freshman class in the ACC and all over the country, but really impresses. The Virginia freshman was Tista Ritter, the guy from Europe whose name I can barely pronounce. It has like 16 consonants in it. 6'9" freshman. He had 26 points, 8 rebounds as Virginia beats Northwestern. That's the kind of win that you will want on your side when it comes to bubble time. And I think Virginia probably is looking like they're a team that could be on the bubble, which would be nice for them. Clemson beat West Virginia by 3. Honestly, I think Clemson could have done. West Virginia is struggling a bit today, but they're a Big 12 team. Good that Clemson, finished off that win. Clemson is currently in the top 30 in KenPom, and they have a huge game on Sunday. They'll be playing Georgia on Sunday. Georgia's undefeated. Georgia's a top 30, top 40 team in KenPom as well. This is one of those games where you're like, not necessarily bubble team, but, bubble-ish kind of team against another bubble-ish kind of team. You need to get those wins. So big weekend for Clemson here that starts by them beating West Virginia. And then I want to talk about Wake Forest really quick. Wake has looked like a team much better than people expected them to be. We've mentioned they had a 1-point loss in overtime to Michigan. They had a 1-point loss to Texas Tech. They couldn't get over the hump in those 2 games. Well, they had a game against Memphis where they got over the hump. They were trailing the whole game to Memphis, and then they won on a buzzer beater. They were down to Miles Colvin takes a 3 from the corner. Literally, the buzzer went off while it was in the air, and it went through the net to give Wake a 1-point win. After some heartbreaking last-second losses, Wake finally gets a victory. Memphis, not a power conference team, but one of the best non-power conference teams in the country year after year. Miles Colvin, I should note, he's a Purdue transfer. He only averaged like 5 points per game last year at Purdue. He's turned into a super sub. He is one of the best sixth men in the ACC. He's averaging close to 13 points per game now for Wake Forest and had a huge 3-pointer to give them a big win. A good night overall, a very good night for the ACC to get all those wins over power conference and power conference-like teams.
Yeah, they should be doing this in the early part of the season, a non-conference portion of the schedule. When we get to the ACC SEC Challenge, we've talked about how important that is for improving the prestige and the stature of the conference this year. For people to go, oh, this ACC is no joke, right? And last year, the fact that we got ran out of that challenge was part of the reasons why we could barely get 4 teams into the NCAA tournament. People just saw that image and said, if they can't do this against the best conference in the country, then why are we, putting them in the tournament? That sort of thing. So we want to see them beating these teams. We want to see them beating Big 10 and SEC and Big 12 teams and Big East teams and taking care of business like Duke did last night against the little guys. Because you want, come tournament time, all of these games are going to be used to stack up against each other, but also conferences are going to be stacked up against each other. If an ACC team is going up against a Big 12 team and they're both on the bubble and they both have identical records, they're going to say, oh, well, the Big 12 is better, or they're going to say the ACC was better. You want the ACC to be a part of that conversation. To do that, everybody needs to continue winning. Even you, Boston College, you're still a part of this. Stanford lost to Seattle last night. Like those are the losses you can't have. But the wins that you mentioned are the wins that we definitely need.
The ACC currently has 11 teams in the top 60 of KenPom. I mean, this means like most of your road games in the ACC this year are going to be quad 1 games.
And last year, Jason, it was like 3 people in the top 75.
Yeah, it was just it was terrible. It was so difficult to get a win that mattered. That's not the case, at least so far, in the non-conference season so far for the ACC. And I think the other part of it is you're going to see, like last year, we're like, you got to get to 11, maybe even 12 wins in the conference to be on the NCAA bubble to get a shot. I think you're going to see teams around 500, 9 wins, 10 wins could easily get you there in the ACC this year. because the conference is so difficult. All right, with that, we're going to wrap it up here on the latest edition of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Thanks for being with us on a early Saturday morning. We'll be back in your feed on Monday to recap the games of Sunday. We're recording this before Duke plays UNC in football. We'll be talking about that as well. Tons of content coming at you as we approach the big Thanksgiving matchup against Arkansas. Man, there's just so much going on. It is a fun time to be a Blue Devil. He is Donald. I am Jason. Here's the Duke Band playing us out to more of the Brotherhood Run in Cameron. Go Devils.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.